20 years, 17 doctors. Not one of them found the answer. Scarlet Wynn ran a $4 billion financial empire from a wheelchair, and the world had grown so accustomed to that fact that no one questioned it anymore. No one asked why. No one looked twice. No one, that is, except the man who had no business being there at all. He was not a doctor, not anymore. He was a single father in a blue uniform, pushing a hand truck through the door of her penthouse office, delivering a box that didn't matter. He looked at Scarlet for 8 seconds. Then he said the one thing that 20 years and 17 specialists had never said, and from that moment, nothing stayed the same. Keep watching, because what happened next changed everything. Neither of them knew they were still waiting for. The rain had been falling since before sunrise, and Sebastian Cole did not own an umbrella. He kept meaning to buy one. He kept not buying one. The detail belonged to a longer list of small things he had stopped maintaining after Diana died. The kind of list a person accumulates when survival replaces living, and the margin for anything extra simply disappears. He pulled his delivery van into the loading bay of the Wynn Capitol Tower at 7:45 in the morning, cut the engine, and sat for 3 seconds longer than necessary. Just 3 seconds. Then he climbed out. The cargo was straightforward. 2 sealed boxes of medical documentation equipment, a portable diagnostic display unit, and its calibration accessories, ordered through a third-party procurement vendor and routed to the executive floor. Sebastian loaded them onto his hand truck, checked the delivery manifest, and wheeled through the service entrance. The building was cold, the way expensive buildings are always cold, aggressively climate-controlled, as if the temperature itself were a statement of consequence. He rode the freight elevator to the 38th floor. His boots were clean but not new. His uniform was pressed the way a man presses a uniform when he irons at 5:30 in the morning before waking a 7-year-old girl who refuses to eat breakfast without her father sitting across from her. The small disciplines, the ones that no one notices but that hold a life together the way mortar holds stone. The assistant who met him at the elevator was a woman in her early 40s, composed precise in the way people become precise when they have spent years managing someone important. Her name was Abigail. She led him down a corridor of pale marble and glass toward the main office without offering conversation, and Sebastian followed without requiring it. He had been inside rooms like this before. He remembered the particular quality of silence in rooms where decisions with large consequences were made a silence that had weight to it, that pressed lightly on the chest. He recognized it the way a man recognizes the smell of a hospital even when there are no hospitals nearby, through a memory that lives in the body and not the mind. Scarlet Wynn did not look up when he entered. She sat behind a desk that was wide and dark and covered in layered documents, her pen moving across a margin note with the focused velocity of someone for whom interruption was simply not a category of experience. The wheelchair was matte black, custom-framed, positioned with the precision of a piece of office furniture rather than a medical device. She wore a white blazer, collar open, hair pulled back. The reading glasses she had pushed halfway down her nose gave her the look of someone who had already decided what everything meant before you opened your mouth. Sebastian set the boxes down. He pulled out his delivery scanner and waited for the confirmation prompt. While the device processed, his eyes moved. Not deliberately, not with professional intent. They move the way eyes move when a person has spent 6 years training themselves to observe without touching a reflex that does not turn off simply because the license that sanctioned it has been set aside in a drawer. He saw the angle of her right hip relative to the seat cushion. He saw the position of her feet on the footrests, left flat, right slightly drawn back. He saw the way her left wrist adjusted when the air conditioning shifted the top page of her stack, 2 millimeters. He saw the small involuntary flex of the right calf barely visible, almost nothing, the kind of movement that appears in exactly 0 cases of structural paralysis and in nearly every case of something else entirely. 8 seconds. Then, low and almost to himself, the words came before he consciously chose them. Your right foot is pulling back. Scarlet Wynn looked up for the first time. The silence that followed was not hostile. It was the silence of a person who has heard something so precisely unexpected that the ordinary social mechanisms for responding to it simply do not activate. Her pen stopped. She looked at him, not at his uniform, not at his scanner, not at the boxes. At him. Sebastian held her gaze for 1 second, then looked back at his scanner. The confirmation prompt had appeared. He pressed accept, tore off the receipt, and set it on the corner of her desk. "Have a good morning," he said. He was back in the elevator before either of them fully processed what had just happened. But the words had already landed, and the room, though it looked exactly the same, was not. Sebastian did not think about it on the drive back to the depot. He thought about Chloe's school lunch. He had packed the wrong crackers, the plain ones she tolerated, instead of the cheddar ones she loved. And he thought about the tuition supplemental payment due by Friday, and the way the numbers never quite lined up the way he arranged them in his head. He thought about the stack of mail on the kitchen counter. One envelope he recognized by its return address and had not yet opened. He had been not opening it for 11 days. He picked Chloe up at 3 o'clock, and she ran to him the way she always ran, with her backpack swinging and her sneakers untied, with the particular unguarded velocity of a child who has never once doubted that someone will be waiting at the gate. She elbowed her way under his arm and told him about the painting she had made in art class, a woman in a chair with big wheels. The teacher had said people in wheelchairs could do anything, and Chloe had thought about that the whole afternoon and decided it was probably true, but that it was also probably still hard, and that it was important to know both things at once. Sebastian looked at the painting. The woman in the chair had orange hair and a yellow dress, and was smiling in the tentative way children draw smiles when they are trying to be kind. He did not say anything. He folded the painting carefully and placed it on the back seat. Scarlet Wynn had not said anything to anyone about what the delivery driver said. Not to Abigail, not to her attorney, not to Richard Ashby when he called at noon to review the board agenda. She had simply continued her day with the focused efficiency she had built over 2 decades into something so practiced it resembled armor. But efficiency requires full attention, and her attention was no longer fully available. That evening, alone in her private bathroom, she looked at her right foot for a long time. She had not looked at it this way, not studying it, not watching it in years. The doctors had always done the looking. She had learned to be looked at rather than to look. She had learned, somewhere in the years of appointments and assessments and careful explanations of what could not be explained, to be the subject of inquiry rather than its source. She watched the foot. Nothing dramatic happened, but after 4 minutes of stillness, she thought she felt imagined, perhaps a faint pull in the back of her calf. She told herself it was nothing. She called Abigail at 9:15 that night. "The delivery driver from this morning," she said. "The one who brought the medical equipment. I need his full name and service identification." Abigail was quiet for a moment. "I'll have it in the morning. Tonight, please." By 10 o'clock, a file sat open on Scarlett's screen. Sebastian Aaron Cole, 32 years old. Prior occupation: attending physician, neurology, Mercy General Hospital,